Welcome in, Oklahoma Sooners fans, college football fans, to another special edition. I guess we can say special edition of Oklahoma Sooners Live. This is Oklahoma at the voice of college football. I'm your host, Josh Mahler. We are very excited to get going tonight because we've got a big game for the Oklahoma Sooners, and probably the last time, it could be the last time that we come on here with any sort of optimism or hope for the end of the season or what this season is going to go through. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a bunch, and we've got a bunch to get into tonight. Very excited about this weekend and what could go down in Knoxville. I think the Oklahoma Sooners have a really big game ahead of them, one that could really could really give Oklahoma fans a little bit of hope for a special ending to the season, or just completely go down the dumps. It's one of the two, but nonetheless, we will get into all of that. Big game against Tennessee. There was also a lot of big news that kind of was going on this week. We'll kind of get to a bunch of it. But anyways, jump in that live chat. If you're watching anywhere other than YouTube, jump over to the YouTube channel. Just search Oklahoma VOCFB, all one word, and find us on YouTube. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And then if you want to support the channel a little bit further and just help us keep on growing here at Oklahoma at the voice of college football, become a member. Just click the link down in the description below. Click join on our channel, and you'll become a member of the channel here and help us build a community here, as well as supporting this channel so we can keep on giving you guys more. We give live shows on Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and post-game Saturday. That's 5 shows that we're giving Oklahoma Sooners fans. That's just live shows. We have all kinds of content that we're constantly pumping out there for you guys. If you can't join in on the live shows, we have clips that we clip from the live shows to make it simpler just to listen to parts of the show rather than listening to an entire hour-long segment or an hour-long show. But anyways, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Those are 2 free and easy ways to help us keep on growing here and to support the channel. But becoming a member just helps us a little bit further. Let's dive into it. Oklahoma's got a big week ahead of them, but first, before we talk about the Tennessee game, we have to talk about the state of the program right now. You've seen other teams kind of go through it. You're seeing other teams that they really have just figured out that they're not going anywhere with the current regime, and they've moved on. And Oklahoma fan base is talking a little bit about what could be next, and I kind of want to talk about that because I feel like it has been the talk of the week. Oklahoma loses a game, and of course, what's going to follow after that? Oklahoma fans talking about what could be next after a loss, and I oftentimes call it overreacting, but I don't really want to call it that. I mentioned something about that on social media this week and posted that I think fans should be upset. Anytime your team loses, fans should be upset. That's why you are a fan of a team, because you want that team to win. Fans should be upset when Oklahoma, specifically Oklahoma fans, should be upset about any loss and should be upset about a 2-loss team this far into the season where the losses have been ugly. Some of the wins have been exciting and good wins, and you gain some confidence in this team after those wins. I think the Michigan win was one that Oklahoma fans got very confident of, and maybe a little too overconfident now that we've gotten this far into the season, with hindsight being 2020. But you get really confident in your team after some of those big wins. I think the Auburn win kind of made Oklahoma fans pucker up a little bit, but say, hey, at least we got out of that one. We squeezed out of a tough game. And nobody would ever tell you that Auburn's an easy team to beat. They may not be a good team, but they're not an easy team to beat. Then you move forward, and I think, of course, the Texas loss was one that was really ugly, brought this fan base down to bones. It felt like the fan base was very down on how Oklahoma looked after that Texas loss. But then they have the bounce back win against South Carolina, and the way that they won there against South Carolina, I think the fan base felt very positive. And again, maybe overconfident back into this team again. Hey, this team only has 1 loss, and they could move on and beat a top 10 opponent in Ole Miss and move on with this season, feeling pretty good about the way that the season could end, and at least feeling good that, hey, what we have here is building up forward towards what we've got in the future. to where now you lose in really a gut-wrenching loss to Ole Miss at home in a game that Oklahoma had plenty of opportunities to take. Now, you can talk about how poor the officiating was, which it has been every week in the SEC, so let's not pretend like that's not the case. You can talk about all kinds of things outside of the fact that it really was just Oklahoma's loss. I mean, they lost and they beat themselves in so many ways, and they could have taken that game in so many different ways. I will mention Lane Kiffin's comment. I get where Lane Kiffin's coming from, and you know what? He's good at being snarky and kind of talking crap to rally his fan base up, and so I give him all the credit in the world for that. But he talked about how Brent Venables came out in the press conference after the game, the post-game press conference, and he said, I feel like we were the better team, and we didn't. Basically, it was pulled out of context. That entire clip, they one of the reporters asked him, he said, hey, Brent Venables feels like they were the better team. And to Lane Kiffin's credit, yeah, he's right. I mean, really, that was, what game were you watching then? Because Ole Miss was better in many categories and ended up beating a defensive coach in his own game. And so, I understand where Lane Kiffin was coming from, but then for the reason why he went down that road and why a lot of Oklahoma fans are upset with his comments are because the reporter was asking that question without really putting any kind of context behind that. The context behind it was just simply put that hey, after the game, Brent Venables said, I feel like we were the better team and didn't show that today. And I think any coach typically feels that way, and any coach should typically feel that way about his team, that you feel better than any team you're going against. You feel like you have a chance to win against any team you're going against. That's the way coaches should feel. So anyways, to get off that rant, Oklahoma loses 34-26 in a game that felt within reach many times throughout that game. And we've already talked about that ad nauseum, about how this was a game that Oklahoma really beat themselves, whether it be penalties, and you can talk about some of the poor penalties or some of the missed calls, all of that, but Oklahoma should have been able to overcome those things. This was an Oklahoma team that coming into it knew that they could run the ball with Xavier Robinson and Tory Blaylock because they did it a week ago against South Carolina, who was ranked 75th in rushing defense. And Oklahoma is now going against the 90-some ranked rushing defense and didn't try to get the run game going, didn't even attempt to use that to their advantage. And there's many reasons. We've talked about this, again, plenty this week and leading up to the Tennessee game, really coming away from this Ole Miss game, that Oklahoma didn't try to utilize that run game. And the main reason why you utilize run game against a team that isn't very good at running the ball is, first off, that's their weakness. So why not use that weakness against them? But second of all, the run game specifically, you really want to get going because of what it does to the clock. You take away so much on the play clock. You end up chewing up that time of possession, which Oklahoma desperately needed in this game. And any team really needs that in tight games. Any team wants to win the time of possession because that means you kept your defense off the field and you kept your offense on the field. What is that the recipe for? That's the recipe for scoring points and not allowing them to score points. So Oklahoma doesn't run the ball well. They finally get something going in the third quarter, and they don't go based off of what their running back and Xavier Robinson, who averaged 5.5 yards per carry when you take away that 65-yard touchdown. And in the fourth quarter, I believe he only got 3 or 4 touches. And in the fourth quarter alone, when he got those 3 or 4 touches, he still averaged 5.5 yards per carry. So in a crucial moment, in a crucial quarter where you need to close this game out, Oklahoma doesn't go with the guy that is being the workhorse for them, the guy that they know they can rely on because he's been reliable during the entire third quarter and got this team back into the lead. Anyways, Oklahoma drops to 6-2. I'm kind of going off on rants that we've already talked about plenty, and I don't mean to cover too much on that last game, but 6-2, 2-2 in the conference. You now match your win total for last week in both the last season in both the conference and in win total. And Now, after that second loss, you put Oklahoma in the situation where you really need to win out these last 4 games. And to remind everybody, you've got to go on the road to Knoxville this weekend and then a bye week, and on the road to Tuscaloosa the following weekend after the bye week. And I think the 2 home games, most Oklahoma fans would probably say you should be able to win against a Missouri team that won't have their starting quarterback in Bo Prabula, and who was, I was actually kind of corrected, was technically their backup quarterback, because I forget now who their starting quarterback was, but they had a different starting quarterback, got injured, and now then Bo Prabula came in, and I think that was the right move. It actually worked out really well for them. But you should be able to beat Missouri if they don't have their starting quarterback, which it seems that they won't, and LSU, who just lost their head coach. Those are 2 winnable games at home for Oklahoma to close out the season. So that gives Oklahoma fans hope that, hey, 8-4 season at least gives us some sort of hope for the future. It at least gives us some sort of insight that, hey, we built off of only 6 wins a season ago and we moved up to 8. So maybe next year we move up to 10. And it gives you some sort of hope, I suppose. Not much confidence, but you've got hope, right? And so with that being said, Oklahoma fans really need a win on the road, either at Knoxville or at Tuscaloosa. And at Knoxville seems like the more likely of the 2, if we're being honest with ourselves. But right now, so the playoff odds, the college football playoff odds for Oklahoma, it plummeted down to 19.6% based on ESPN's CFP index. So 19.6, where before the Ole Miss game, it was at 42.9% chance to win enough games and to make the college football playoffs. So Oklahoma is sitting at a very tough spot. Now, if Oklahoma were to win on the road in Knoxville, it would bump up. And then to go on the road to Tuscaloosa, I really can't expect too much right now with the confidence level that this fan base is on. Can't expect too much there. But there's a chance for Oklahoma to be able to move on and to grow their odds even more. And so, anyways, it's a lot of optimism, a lot of moving forward. But currently sitting at 19.6% chance to make the college football playoffs. Now, that is a relatively higher number than what it sounds like when you really think of what Oklahoma has to do. In all reality, you win out, you're in the college football playoffs. It's just that, again, the confidence level is not there to say that Oklahoma could make it. And again, now sitting at 6-2, 2-2 in the conference, Brent Venables is facing an increased scrutiny among the fan base. And again, I say rightfully so. And I think even Brent Venables would say rightfully so. Fans should expect to win. This is Oklahoma. And Brent Venables knows that better than most, that Oklahoma expects to win, that the university, this program expects to win. And now a lot of fans even kind of putting him on a kind of a potential hotter seat and an increasingly hot seat. And so it leads me to this where, it really leads all of us to understand and to truly expect that November is a must win. November is a make or break. And yes, welcome to November football. This is where Oklahoma, we used to call this championship football. It's championship November. You win November, you're making it to a championship game. And it truly comes down to, can Oklahoma win, starting off with Tennessee? And can they win through the month of November with this make or break stretch of games where you've got 3 consecutive currently ranked SEC opponents? Now, again, Missouri probably won't be ranked by the time Oklahoma plays them. I don't foresee that. I think they will lose this weekend to Texas A&M, and I think they will have their work cut out without Bo Prabula against Mississippi State, but they could win that game. So they probably won't be ranked by the time Oklahoma faces off against Missouri in Norman. But anyways, that leads us to where you can kind of look at those last 2 games against Missouri and LSU and expect Oklahoma to win. Now, the confidence level, again, is a totally different thing. Some fans won't have that confidence in Oklahoma to be able to win those games, and I get it. But it's one that every Oklahoma fan would admit that those are 2 that Oklahoma should win. So it comes down to it, where it really is a make or break for the season. What will this season be with these last 4 games, this last 4 stretch of tough games, no doubt, regardless of what LSU's situation is, or even Missouri's situation at that matter, because Missouri still has a pretty tough defense, and LSU does too, for that matter. Now, I don't know how much different it will be with a starting quarterback and a head coach being out for both of those teams, but still, nonetheless, 2 games that Oklahoma should win. Now it comes down to Tuscaloosa and Knoxville. What can Oklahoma do in those 2 games? I think anybody would be crazy to say that if Oklahoma were to win on these last 2 road games, that they wouldn't finish the season at a 10-win season. I think you'd be crazy to believe that Oklahoma shouldn't win the last 2 games, or won't win the last 2 games that they were able to win on the road against Tennessee and Alabama. I don't think that will happen at this point in the season. I don't think it will happen. But we're giving kind of a broad sense of what could happen. What is the scenario for Oklahoma this season? It really is a make or break stretch for Oklahoma. Again, currently 3 ranked teams on the schedule out of 4 games. So Oklahoma then comes down to a tough task here, closing out the season. And let's say that this season doesn't go to expectations. Oklahoma wins 8 games. I'm going to tell you right now, if Oklahoma only wins 8 games in this season, though I predicted 8-4, many fans, and again, I say rightfully so, because I don't want to try to criticize or critique fans for mediocrity, and for any kind of mediocrity at the University of Oklahoma. I heard a clip from Andy Staples this past week where he was talking, and he said Oklahoma fans shouldn't expect to lose. Oklahoma fans shouldn't be happy or find any kind of moral victories. That's not what the brand of Oklahoma University is all about. That is not what Oklahoma is about. So Oklahoma should expect to win, and the fan base should expect to win more than 8 games. And so I will understand where Oklahoma fans are sitting. But it comes at that point. So let's say even at 7-5, I don't think Oklahoma wins less than 7 games. I think they've got one of these last 4 games, Oklahoma will win one of them. And so I'm saying worst case scenario, 7-5. Best case scenario, I guess, is 10-2. Realistic expectations of high expectations would be 9-3. And I'm to the point right now where I think Oklahoma fans, I'm genuinely asking you guys, so please put it down in the chat, in the comments down below, and let me know what you guys think. Because if Oklahoma were to end at the worst case scenario at 7-5, I think at 6-6 we can all probably say that the writing is on the wall for this current regime. But at 7-5, how confident are Oklahoma fans? How confident do Oklahoma fans feel that they can compete against the other teams that are currently searching for a head coach? That's what I want to ask, because I understand and I agree with fans frustrated and saying 8-4 after a 6-6 10-win season, and 6-6 again, and 1 bowl win in the entire tenure for Brent Venables. Is that right? Or no bowl wins. I'm trying to think back. I know against Arizona, against Air Force, and against Florida State. So I guess he is 0-3, but I think there was the one right before he came in. So maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. But I look at this Oklahoma team and I just question, how confident are we in the coaching carousel? Because before you fire a coach or try to move on from your current regime, you have to have a guy in mind. Who is that guy for Oklahoma? Who does Oklahoma think that they can lean on to maybe fall back on and expect to pull in? Because you can't really expect a current sitting head coach unless he's at a lower tier team, maybe a power, a non-power 4 team, a group of 5 team. You could expect somebody from that level. You could even expect somebody at that's a current coordinator. And I think even pulling a coordinator away from a winning program, let's say, a Georgia right now, or an Ohio State, even pulling them away from those higher ranked and bigger brand programs will take quite a bit for Oklahoma. And so you can't really put a whole lot of stock into knowing that you can get those guys. So who would be on your list? Because currently, I'm going to tell you right now where Oklahoma sits right now. The SEC is not enough for the brand of Oklahoma to boast for a current head coaching position, if that were to be the case. And the reason being is that you've got Florida searching for a head coach in the SEC. You've got Auburn, who will probably be searching for a head coach in the SEC. And who knows? I think you could have a few others. I think Kentucky's one of them that's kind of talking about it. I don't know if that will definitely be open. But you also have LSU, a current really a top brand in the SEC. Not just a top brand in the SEC, but a top brand in college football, also looking for a head coach. So again, I raise the question to Oklahoma fans. Do you feel confident that Oklahoma will get the guy with this current coaching carousel? Now, it also isn't something that should hold a team back necessarily. It definitely doesn't mean that Oklahoma should just wait off because the coaching carousel is too difficult to compete with right now. And that's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that does fall into the decision making. Not only that, but Oklahoma is still currently also looking for an athletic director. So keep that in mind. And so do you really want Joe Castiglione to be the one to hire the next head coach of this football team? Or would you rather maybe hold out? Because I know what some of the stigma is for Joe Castiglione around this fan base. So I'm throwing that out there just as what is the state of this program? They dropped to 6-2. Let's say Oklahoma finishes at 8-4 or 7-5, and fans are calling for Brent Venables and this regime, this entire regime, this basically the entire slate of coaches just to be gotten rid of and replaced. What would be your answer? And I'm not saying that you're wrong for believing that if Oklahoma were to fall to 7-5. Again, I don't like to sit here and call out Oklahoma fans and try to tell them how they're wrong for how they feel about this program. You should expect to win, and you should expect to win 10 plus wins, and you should expect to make the playoffs, and especially in a 12-team playoff. You should expect Oklahoma to be in the discussion and making the playoffs. Oklahoma shouldn't even just be part of the discussion. They should be in the discussion. So this is kind of a turning point for Oklahoma. I think November, like I mentioned, is kind of a make or break stretch for Oklahoma. What will be the future of this team? Do they move on to an 8-win season, which I believe Brent Venables keeps his job, no doubt. I don't think there's even really a question. I think 8-4, Brent Venables keeps his job, and we have a lot to look forward to. The 2026 cycle, as we'll talk about in just a little bit, is starting to look a little bit better. And so you pull in another really good recruiting class, and we know what the current younger players look like and how well they've been developed. And moving forward, once they get into their sophomore seasons, hey, Oklahoma could be a much better team if we were to hang on after 8-4. And so do we hope for that progress to go on, or even at a 7-5 season, to know what Oklahoma has coming in and what could be, or is it just not enough for this fan base? And that's honestly just a curiosity question that I have for this fan base. What is the next move if Oklahoma were to concede, to your point, and move on? All right, time to jump over to the live chat real quick. I see you guys active over there. I appreciate everybody so much for jumping in the live chat. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you haven't already. Hopefully we've got a good connection here tonight. I know I'm in a hotel with hotel Wi-Fi, and it doesn't always connect very well. So hopefully we're coming through crystal clear for everybody. Even lowered the quality just a little bit. But anyways, if you are watching anywhere other than YouTube, then jump over to the YouTube live stream real quick for us, and jump over there. Just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. All right, let's see real quick. Corrections. He says hit the thumbs up on the way in. I appreciate that very much. Even though Zeno picked against OU. He did, but I think a lot of Oklahoma fans are also picking against OU, right? Actually, last night I picked against OU. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I picked against OU last night on a Tennessee show. They were asking me, and I said, right now, man, I didn't prepare a score. And so right now I'm just not sure. I think Oklahoma might lose this game. Just because the confidence level is low. We're into Tuesday, so I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And I've actually had the chance to look through Tennessee a little bit more. So I do feel good about Oklahoma's chances. I'm starting to feel a little bit more confidence. But going on the road bumps that down. Right now, I feel 50-50. I really do. I feel very 50-50. So don't hold me to my prediction that I made on a Monday night when I had no real prep on Tennessee. Sooner says it's frustration because of how good this defense is now. And again, we have an incompetent offensive coordinator. I don't think we have an incompetent offensive coordinator. I will say I think DeMarco Murray is one of the biggest ones to blame. And I don't like calling out names of coaches. I don't like calling out names of players. None of that. I really don't. But I think it's at the point now where everyone recognizes it, everyone sees it. I don't think there's much of an excuse for DeMarco Murray any longer, because DeMarco Murray would be the one to blame for the lack of running. And I think that is the biggest concern for Oklahoma right now. I don't think the play calling was bad last week, outside of just not calling enough run plays. So, I think that is what needs to be fixed. I think if you're going to count anyone out, I think it would be DeMarco Murray. And by the end of this season, I don't think it would be, even if Oklahoma were to win 10 games, I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility that he's probably moving on from the University of Oklahoma. Let's go ahead and move on. Stacy's in the chat. She says, hope is always present, even if we're not confident. Yeah, that's why I try to make the distinction there. I have some hope for Oklahoma. I think there are hopes that Oklahoma makes 10 wins and makes it to the college football playoffs, and even hope that Oklahoma could win a game or two in the college football playoffs. I think the hope is there, and I think the hope is always there for anyone. If you cheer for your team, you should hope that they win every single game. Obviously, I think that's why we get emotional about these games, and I think that's what you expect. You should. That's why we buy into being a fan. That's what being a fanatic is all about. But yeah, truly is a season where it's just all about hope and not a whole lot of confidence. How much confidence do we have? Even in the defense, based on how they performed in the first half against Ole Miss, I don't have a lot of confidence going into this Tennessee game. I do have confidence that they'll get things fixed, but will it be too late? I just don't know, because that defense did fall short just a little bit. Let's see here. Losing to Texas 3 out of 4 years, and during those 3 losses, not scoring a touchdown is terrible. Yes, that was from Jimmy Satterfield. What's up, Jimmy? I agree with you. And I think that's probably the biggest frustration about Brent Venables that this fan base has. It's not necessarily, if Oklahoma were to go 8-4, I don't think many fans would really throw a fit if those 4 losses were, let's say, Michigan and they make it to the college football playoffs, and then Ole Miss, and then let's say Alabama, and I don't know, whatever the case may be. I don't think fans would be as upset if 4 of those losses, let's say Missouri at home to a good, healthy Missouri team. Let's just throw that one in there. Maybe that's not a good example because Oklahoma fans still have a little bit of a rivalry there. But my point being, I think if Oklahoma didn't lose to Texas this season, and again, losing to Texas without scoring a touchdown, like you mentioned, I think it makes it a little bit easier for the fan base to move on from an 8-4 season and say, all right, we need to see a step forward again. We saw the step forward, 6 wins to 8 wins. We understand that it's a tough schedule. We're not okay with it. We understand, so let's move forward and let's get that 10-plus win season in there. Let's get double digits here in the SEC. I think that would make things a lot different. So yes, losing to Texas definitely builds on to the frustration, no doubt. Going back to Sooners to win real quick, he says, I predicted 9-3, but just the way we lose and to who it is, what makes it so awful. I agree with you. I look at my 8-4 prediction now, and I would have felt like, hey, I'm not happy with 8-4, but if at 8-4 with this schedule, I think Oklahoma is on the right trajectory. So I can't be too upset with moving. With moving up. I don't think you can get too upset about that. So yeah, I'm right there with you. But now the way that Oklahoma is losing, I do question a little bit about where and what will happen there. I don't know. It's just you're losing a lot of confidence in this team now. And how much better can they get next season if we finish the season 8 or 9 wins? And there's frustration building up there for sure. And I think 9 wins, the fan base would be okay. We're at ease. We won 9. Let's move forward. Let's move forward next season. Let's get to that 10 plus wins. And I think that's what Oklahoma fans really need this season. I also see him throwing Josh Heupel in there. I don't know. I'm not sure if Josh Heupel would lose, or if he would lose. I don't know if he would move on from Tennessee, unless something were to happen this season where they finish with 8 wins and they just got rid of him out of emotion or something. I suppose. I don't know. Maybe he would. That would definitely be a good candidate. So you know what? Tip the cap to you, because at least you threw a good candidate out there. I just don't know how confident you can be in being able to secure Josh Heupel, because he's at an SEC program that's doing well, loves him, and he's getting paid well. So why would he come to Oklahoma? Is the brand really that much better? I know he's alma mater. I know that he won a national championship here, but why would he come? Excuse me. Showtime's in the chat. Cheer up, Showtime. He says, we won't win another game this season. Cheer up. I think Oklahoma's just fine. I think they're going to sit. Like I said, worst case scenario in my mind, Oklahoma finishes 7-5. If you don't beat Missouri and LSU, either one of those losses is going to make this fan base erupt. I know it, and I agree with it. 7-5. That's why I say I agree with the emotion coming from the fan base about wanting to get rid of this regime if they sit there at 7-5 with this schedule left, because LSU and Missouri should be wins. There's no doubt in my mind that those should be wins for Oklahoma. So yeah, absolutely. 9-3 is safe. 7-5 not good. I agree with you, Adam. Carrier in there. I agree with you 100%. That is not good at all. 7-5. I'm probably on the same page as everyone. But again, my only concern is if you get rid of your coach now, who does have a bright future coming into the program. I'm not saying that he's going to have a bright future or anything, but you look at the recruiting classes that he has lined up, the 2027 class specifically. You have the 2026 class we're going to talk about a little bit later. It is also starting to look pretty good. So I think it's just a tough one to say, let's get rid of Brent Venables with that big of a buyout when you're not really sure who you would go to. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think Josh Heupel would be the obvious one that everyone would throw on the list, but will he actually leave Tennessee? I don't know. You throw out a number so high that he has to reject it, yes, but I just don't know if that's going to be reasonable to believe that he would come to Oklahoma. Believe and Be Saved says, we're stuck with Brent for better or for worse from now or for one more year. I agree with you. I think Oklahoma's kind of stuck in that boat just because of the way that this carousel is ran for the most part. I think regardless of how this season ends up. Now, 6-6, I think Oklahoma moves on from Brent Venables at 6-6. You won 6 of your first 7 games, and then you just plummeted after that. I think so. I think you've got to move on from there. I don't think there's much of a question, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Brent Venables is still around, and I want him to be. I think most of the fan base likes Brent Venables. I think most of the fan base wants Brent Venables to do well at Oklahoma because they like him as a coach and what he stands for and how much he loves this program and wants this program to succeed. I think most of the fan base wants him. It's just, whatever will happen with him. I don't know. I think the fan base wants to move on from him if he's not going to work out, obviously. But they want him to succeed. Modern Day Caveman, what's up, man? He's in the chat. He says, I would imagine if BV got fired, a lot of defensive players will jump in the portal and follow him wherever he goes. I agree with that sentiment. And that's one thing that has me concerned is what does this defense turn into if Brent Venables does go? Because Brent Venables is the reason why Oklahoma is so good. He really is. I see. Okay, so I will throw out Shockley Kylie. I appreciate you jumping in the chat, but I can't throw that kind of stuff up on the screen. I would show your chats up on the screen, but we can't show that up on the screen here. We try to keep things PG-13, but finally a Tennessee fan that we might not like. How about that? Anyways. Jimmy Satterfield says, JJF should have been fired last year, in my opinion. I think a lot of people feel that way. Okay, so Shockley Kylie is actually a Tide fan, which is kind of hysterical that you're coming in and cheering against Oklahoma for your rival. That's really odd. Very odd. Very odd, strange behavior. Very strange behavior. Okay, yeah, Jimmy agrees with me. He says, I agree, we all like BV. Yeah, I think the fan base likes him. I do. I think the fan base likes him. Okay, so it's obvious that I guess I said a little bit ago that it was the first Tennessee fan that we don't like, but being an Alabama fan, that makes a lot more sense. But anyways, no, yeah, I think the fan base likes Brent Venables. And Sooners to win even says the same thing. I love Brent. Just wish we hired Brennan Marion over Arbuckle. I don't know if Brennan Marion was actually on the table or not, but I feel that. I don't know if that gimmick offense was going to work in the SEC though. I think Ben Arbuckle's just fine. I don't think he's a bad coordinator. Give him a little bit more time. This is his first season at a big time school, so just throwing that out there. Anyways, we'll go ahead and move on. Let's talk about some of the key matchups for this Oklahoma-Tennessee game. A lot of matchups that I look at and I think that, man, it feels like a very similar matchup to what we saw last week. And for Oklahoma fans, that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. It's their best against our best, and that is offense against defense, starting off with Tennessee's explosive offense. It is a very good offense. It's an offense that we know is going to be good with Josh Heupel at the helm. It's an offense that's very, very tough to slow down, very tough to stop, because as they entered into Week 10, they're one of the most dangerous offenses in the nation, not just in the SEC, but in the nation. They were second nationally in scoring, 45.6 points per game, third in total offense, 510 yards per game, and third in passing offense, 321 yards per game. Those are some really good stats. So this is a very good offense, an offense that knows how to put up points, and they've done that so far against other pretty good defenses. But I will say that I think that Oklahoma will be the best defense that Tennessee has seen all season long. So that is definitely something to throw out there, which is why I like this matchup. I think as an Oklahoma fan, you should like this matchup, that your team is going to be the best defense that this team has seen, which means you're going to throw a lot of new things out at Tennessee. Tennessee's also going to throw a lot of new things out at the Oklahoma defense, so you have to throw that in there as well. Joey Aguilar, he's been exceptional all season long and really has been the dark horse player really across the entire country. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards, 18 touchdowns. Excuse me. Got a dry throat. It's the hotels, I swear. And then I always forget to get a bottle of water or something to bring in with me. But anyways, 18 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions, while completing 65.9% of his passes. Pretty solid in the SEC. He's passed for over 200 yards in 32 of his Division I starts, which is the longest active streak in the FBS. Probably the most impressive stat that I saw was that, I guess most impressive as of recent, as of what it pertains to for this week. Aguilar torched Kentucky for 396 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. That's the 13th highest single total in Tennessee history, which, if you know Tennessee here in like recent history, that's very impressive. Even going back further, of course, you know that Manning played there, Peyton Manning played there. So very, very impressive. 396 yards and 3 touchdowns last week against Kentucky. I know it's just against Kentucky, but still very impressive. They've also got Chris Brazzell, he's emerged as one of the nation's best wide receivers. If you don't know who he is, you're going to learn who he is. He's going to be used a lot on Saturday. One of the most elite receiving threats in the nation. 740 yards, 8 touchdowns on the season on 43 catches. And it's not just him and what he's able to do, but it's the chemistry between him and Joey Aguilar that really has me a little concerned about what this secondary has coming at them and how full their hands are going to be here with this Tennessee offense. Ultimately, I think a lot of the deep balls, that's going to go to Brazzell. I think he's going to be very lethal in the deep game. So if they're able to go over the top, they're going to try. They're going to try to cheat that defense up and get that defense keeping them honest with the run game and try to go up over the top. And so, yeah, he's had multiple 47 to 50 yard, right in that 50 yard range connections with Aguilar. Against Kentucky alone, he had several. They've also got Deshaun Bishop, who adds some balance. I don't know exactly what the injury report is for Tennessee, and I didn't look into that leading into this. So that could change some of our minds as well. I know talking last night about Tennessee on a Tennessee channel, I was over on Tennessee at the Voice of College Football talking with those guys over there. Apparently they've got some injury problems in their secondary, which is something good to hear for Oklahoma. But anyways, going back to their offense, Deshaun Bishop keeps this offense very balanced with 652 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns on 91 carries on the season. So that explosive offense is definitely one for the Oklahoma Sooners to pay attention to. Then going against the key matchup, going against Oklahoma's defense, a stifling defense, and an electric defense, a very dominant defense. Number 5 overall defense in the nation, a top 5 defense is what I meant. Number 5 in overall and scoring defense. Thanks a lot to Ole Miss, kind of inflating that scoring total just a little bit. But the Oklahoma Sooners, they counter the Tennessee Volunteers in many ways here because of their great defense. One of the best defenses that we've seen at Oklahoma in a very long time. And it's definitely the best defense that Brent Venables has had. He finally has a room full of his guys, completely his guys. They rank 5th nationally in scoring defense, only allowing 12.5 points per game. That number went up from, I think, 9.4 from a week ago. 6th in total defense, 240 yards. That number went up a lot from a week ago. 10th in pass defense, so still a very good pass defense at 155.4 yards per game. And 6th in rush defense. Again, all these numbers really got pushed up quite a bit because of what Ole Miss did to Oklahoma. And that's where some of the concern comes for the Oklahoma Sooners, is that this defense has not played an offense as good as Ole Miss until Ole Miss came to Norman. And they kind of got exposed with a lot of pre-snap motions. I think that threw Oklahoma off a lot of kind of trickery over on the offense. And what I mean by that is I think you saw a couple of times where they had that dual quarterback formation where they had both Simmons and Chambliss back there in the backfield. You're not going to see anything like that against Tennessee, but you will have plenty of that pre-snap movement. And can the defense adapt, and can they get going on this defense, on this Tennessee offense a little bit quicker? That's what you're going to need. They're also 2nd nationally at 3.6 sacks per game, lead the nation in, just dominate the nation. I don't have that stat in front of me. But for tackles for loss, they absolutely dominate by double digits, tackles for a loss. So it's a defense that gets into the backfield. It's a defense that loves to stop offenses in their tracks. However, like I mentioned, it was very much inflated against weaker competition before that Ole Miss loss. I think your losses to Ole Miss and Texas inflate those numbers a little bit, or they I guess deflate those numbers a little bit is how I should be saying that with a defense. But ultimately, in those 2 games alone, the Sooners, so just between Texas and Ole Miss in their 2 losses, they averaged about 28.5 points per game. And then, of course, going back to Ole Miss, who had the best offensive performance against this defense all season long. And you know what? I should say that 28.5 is probably inflated a little bit because because of the punt return. And so I don't think you can count that against this defense at all. I know you can't count that against the defense. But anyways, Ole Miss, they were able to throw for over 300 yards last week against this secondary, kind of showing some vulnerabilities in this secondary. And of course, with any team, if you're paying attention to those, then I think if Tennessee was paying attention to those vulnerabilities, it will bleed into this week, which gives some concern for the Oklahoma Sooners going into the matchup. Now going on to some of Mateer's struggles. Again, I mentioned that there are some injuries over in that Tennessee secondary, and they've had some issues throughout this season. So through 7 games, John Mateer's completed 63.6% of his passes, just under 1,800 yards, 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Not a good touchdown to interception ratio. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, no more interceptions for John Mateer. You can't throw another one all season. With 6 interceptions, you can't afford it. It looks terrible for your team, and you're hurting your team with every interception that you throw with any kind of turnover. His rushing numbers, they've kind of cratered, but that's mainly from his injury. Ever since his injury, I don't think they've really tried to run him as often. But when he does run, he looks as if his legs are injured. And I know a lot of people are speculating that maybe he had some kind of ankle injury or knee injury, and I don't think that's the case, but it sure does look that way. It sure does feel like John Mateer's legs have been injured as well, because he just doesn't look the same. He doesn't look the same as what he once was before that thumb injury, before that thumb surgery. So very interested to see how he bounces back and does a little bit better with his legs. It would be nice there. I think since the injury, let's see here, going down through my notes. Yes, since the injury, Mateer, his completion percentage, it's dropped tremendously, very much. It's dropped a lot. His yards per attempt have declined. And then, like I mentioned a moment ago, also running far less attempts and far less effectively. So the Sooners ranked 93rd nationally in sacks allowed per conference game. So per conference game, they're allowing 3.2 sacks per game in SEC play. Sorry, that's not right. They're 93rd nationally in sacks allowed per game. I think that's per game. And then Tennessee, my notes are a little shaky there. But anyways, Tennessee pass rushers, they're getting to about 3.2 sacks per game in SEC play alone. So Oklahoma will have to stand tall on the offensive line and protect John Mateer. That's going to be one. But Tennessee's secondary, that's what I want to get into, because their secondary, however, it kind of presents a little bit of an opportunity for John Mateer, for him to bounce back. We've seen his numbers decline a lot, and this is an opportunity for John Mateer to get back into his groove. He's not been seeing the field very clearly, and this is a chance for him to do it. Right now, the Vols rank 124th in passing defense at 266.9 yards allowed per game, and 112th in scoring defense at 30.9 points per game. They're missing their All-American cornerback, Jermod McCoy, who tore his ACL, and also Colton Hood. His status is kind of uncertain. We don't know where he's going to be, but apparently he injured himself against Kentucky during halftime warmups. So coming out before the third quarter, ended up injuring himself there. Tennessee's not the best defense. I think you've got a lot of opportunities on the ground. You've also got a lot of opportunities through the secondary, who has their own issues. And they've got the injuries that you can exploit. You can get your quarterback back on track. So I think that would be very crucial for Oklahoma and for John Mateer getting back into this game. Tennessee allowed Kentucky's quarterback, Cutter Boley, they allowed him to throw 5 touchdown passes, something that Kentucky hasn't done all season long against any conference opponent or any power opponent. And so they haven't even done that. I didn't look through the entirety of last year, but they hadn't done that much. I don't think they did that at all last year either against a conference opponent or any Power 4 opponent for that matter. So this secondary is definitely one that Oklahoma could take advantage of, and John Mateer could get back on track with, because the secondary, for one, banged up, and also allowing a lot of gaps and a lot of openings for John Mateer to get back into it. of course, some of the things. You know what? We'll stop right there because we don't want to jump ahead of ourselves. We'll get to some of the X factors here for the Sooners in just a moment. I will jump into the chat. All super chats will be read live on the show. So if you want to secure that make sure that yours is read, make sure to drop a super chat. That is very much appreciated and helps the channel grow. Again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Become a member today to help support the channel a little bit further as well. I'll jump over to Believe and Be Saved. He said, we just need Mateer to snap out of it and get better every week. I will say we seem to win a game, then lose a game. We're inconsistent. Our backs are against the wall. Let's see if we respond. Yeah, 100%. And it's one of those things, too, where I think most good teams refuse to lose 2 in a row. If you're going to lose multiple games, they're not going to be in a row. And for Oklahoma, I think that could be the case. You'll find out this week. But that's kind of what concerned me about going against Texas when we went against Texas, and then going against Ole Miss when OU went against Ole Miss, is that both of them just faced a loss, and a frustrating loss at that, a loss that they shouldn't have had on their record, or one, for Ole Miss's case, it was one that they were leading that game. They were dominating the first 3 quarters of that game against Georgia, and then fell off the face of the planet in the 4th quarter. And then for Texas against Florida, they should never have lost that game against Florida. That was not a game that they had any business being close in. And so, the same for Oklahoma. You lost a game that you probably shouldn't have. And I agree with what Brent Venables says. I feel like we did have the better team going into that matchup, and they just didn't play. They just didn't play like the better team. And that's really disappointing. Ole Miss was the better team on Saturday. No doubt about it. You can't argue against that. So it's every game here on out is a must win, but I think this one is very much a must win if Oklahoma wants to have any sort of chances at a playoff berth at all, or just any chances of having optimism in for its future, whether it's this season or next. Modern Day Caveman says, we already know Heupel. I will copy Ole Miss. BV, let's see. We already know Heupel will copy Ole Miss. BV needs to bring our CBs up closer to the line on the wide receivers to stop the quick QB release and give defense time to apply pressure. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. And I see you guys are kind of talking about that too. And they pointed that out. They pointed that out on the broadcast, how the DBs were just backing up so much and giving so much cushion, allowing a lot of underneath stuff down low. And Lane Kiffin said, okay, if you're not going to stop it, then we're just going to keep on doing it. Lane Kiffin is a master at being able to adapt and to find ways to exploit what he's seeing. He finds a lot of ways to adapt to what you're giving him. And I really like that about Lane Kiffin. One of the best offensive play callers in the game today. Anyways, let's move on to some of our X factors. One of the X factors for Oklahoma in this game is their offensive line struggles. And I guess X factor for the game as a whole, not even just for Oklahoma, but it is for Oklahoma. The Sooners ranked 93rd nationally in sacks allowed per conference game. That was one that I was trying to mention earlier. Have it typed up properly here. 93rd nationally in sacks allowed per conference game. So they're allowing a lot of sacks in conference play right now. And that's something that this offensive line needs to cut back on. And some of it does fall on John Mateer. See the field better, feel the pocket better, move up into the pocket when it's necessary, and do something there. So it really could be disastrous against this Tennessee front, which has an aggressive pass rush. And I think that's one that Tennessee really wants to see, is getting that front four to push, getting really their front seven to have a good pass rush and to be able to get back there to Oklahoma's quarterback, being able to get sacks, being able to get tackles behind the line. That's something that Tennessee is really looking forward to. And I might have said Ole Miss here just a little bit ago, but jumping back and forth between the two teams, kind of confusing my brain just a little bit. But for Oklahoma, the offensive line struggles definitely an X factor in this game. I think Tennessee is going to look for ways to exploit it, and so would any good team. They would look for ways to exploit this offensive line. Of course, Oklahoma hoping to improve enough to be able to not have that as a weakness. Going on for third down efficiency. This is one that, if we were to look back at Oklahoma's losses, third down efficiency was extremely crucial. Not being able to convert on third downs and fourth downs for that matter, and the defense not being able to get off the field on third down. So I think that's very, very much a key factor in this game, and it's a key factor in any major game is how you perform on third down. Are you able to get off the field on defense and be able to sustain a drive on offense? So it might be just a simple one that we don't need to go over. But for Tennessee's third down efficiency specifically, I think this is an X factor for this Oklahoma defense, for this Oklahoma offense, where the Vols rank 89th in late down defensive success. So third and fourth down really allows offenses to stay on the field, allows offenses to do something, to keep their drives going. And so that will be very interesting to see how they perform there, if they're able to get off the field on defense. But specifically this offense, are they able to exploit Tennessee's weakness in third down efficiency? I think that's one that I'm looking at here this weekend to see what Oklahoma does against that Tennessee defense and how they find ways to keep the offense on the field, defense off the field, because as we mentioned earlier on, that's just the key to keeping their offense off the field is a key to keeping them away from having any chance to score points. Keeping your offense on the field gives you higher percentage chance to score points. That's the obvious. There's football 101 there for you. Going on, the turnover margin. This is one that Oklahoma fans desperately want to see. Oklahoma fans are desperately begging to see, is getting some turnovers. Oklahoma sits there at a -6 turnover margin, 117th in the FBS right now, compared to Tennessee's +5, which is 22nd in the nation. Oklahoma can't afford to turn the ball over in this game. This is a game that will come down to every second. It will come down to every inch. It will come out down to every yard, every point, every field goal made, every field goal missed. And it will come down to every turnover that is given away. And Oklahoma cannot afford to give away any turnovers. The turnover margin will be crucial, but winning that turnover margin gives you such an increased opportunity to win in this game. And I think that's really where Oklahoma has to win this game. That's an X factor really for either team in this game, and an obvious one to point out, but nonetheless, one that Oklahoma has struggled tremendously. They've struggled very bad with a defense that was turning the ball over a lot last season, has not been able to turn the ball over much at all this season. So getting those turnovers, very crucial for Oklahoma. And they absolutely need to win that turnover margin. At the very least, not lose the turnover margin. If it's tied at 0-0, I think you still put yourself in a good spot to be able to do something in this game. But winning the turnover margin by getting yourself a turnover or two would be extremely helpful for this offense, put them in better territory, put them in plus territory, be able to get them where they don't have to drive as far down the field and just score points a lot easier, obviously, and give them a little bit more confidence, a little bit more momentum over to your side, and stealing that momentum away from an electric Neyland Stadium at nighttime too. So just keep that in mind. Last X factor that we'll go through is the red zone battle. Oklahoma boasts the best, the first in FBS, the best red zone efficiency rate and scoring, red zone scoring rate. They have 100% every single time. I think it's 26 for 26. They've scored every single time that they're in the red zone, which is awesome. The problem last week is that they weren't able to get themselves into the red zone enough. And for Oklahoma, that will be very crucial. Get yourself into the red zone because that's where you're going to score. You've proven that already, 100%, and boasting to be the number one team in the nation in red zone scoring rate. While Tennessee, they've allowed opponents to score on 93.1% of their red zone trips. They're 125th in the nation on defense in allowing their opponents to score in the red zone. So getting down to the red zone is very crucial. And against this Tennessee defense where they crumble in the red zone and allow you to score. Now, a lot of that too, it bleeds into the field goals as well. So I will throw that out there. This stat is kind of inflated on both sides, inflated and deflated for offense and defense. But still, it is one that if you get into the red zone, you're just about at a sure point you're going to score because Oklahoma's just been smart and taking the points where they can get them. And so getting into the red zone, very crucial. And against this Tennessee defense, who has allowed most of their attempts, 93.1 to be exact, 93.1% of their attempts in the red zone have been allowing scores. So Oklahoma getting to the red zone, very crucial. All right, moving on. We'll get to more prediction later on this week. Stay tuned. We'll get to more predictions. If there's not a live show, I will probably be traveling on Thursday, making my way down to Knoxville on Thursday. So I'm not sure that I'll be able to do a live show, but at the very least, we will have something going. We will have an episode on Thursday. I promise that. Whether it's a pre-recorded or if I make it there in time in order to jump on for a live show. So stay tuned. We will give predictions. I'm not going to give away my predictions just yet. I have to think pretty long and hard about my predictions. That's why my prediction last night on Tennessee at the Voice of College Football, not so pretty, and not one that I think Oklahoma fans would want to hear. But Oklahoma has some big news this week, some good news. The 2026 class just got a little bit better, where a lot of fans were not too happy with this 2026 class and the way that it had been shaping out, not in the top 20. It now jumps up into the top 20 because they get a wide receiver commit. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret too. They might be getting in on another 2026 wide receiver commit here very soon. If we can find a flip that could be out there on the table, just saying. Don't fret. I'm feeling pretty good about another one. And I think if you follow any kind of recruiting, you know exactly who I'm talking about. And one that I've been hinting at for quite some time now as well. But the for sure one is a 4-star wide receiver. And I meant to ask Parker the pronunciation. And I don't want to mispronounce it. Spider-Man Rogers. That's what I'm going to call him. It's his nickname. I'll just say Jay Rogers because I don't know how to say his first name, and I apologize. Should have looked up the pronunciation. I'm terrible at that. You can criticize me that. But Jay Rogers, Spider-Man, flips from Penn State to Oklahoma, understanding that Penn State just fired James Franklin and a lot of things kind of going down south there. They didn't have the season that they were hoping to have, and getting rid of the coach definitely will cause some recruits to flip, some guys to transfer out, and that is definitely the case of what's happened at Penn State. But getting Rogers over to flip his commitment over to Oklahoma, 4-star wide receiver, one that Oklahoma really wanted to be able to land, and they were pressing really hard for this flip, ended up getting him. Highest rated 2026 wide receiver commit for the Sooners as the number 52 nationally. So he's number 52 nationally, the top wide receiver in their 2026 recruiting class. So needless to say, a very good get for Oklahoma. He's 5'11". He had offers from plenty of other Power 4 programs such as Alabama, Indiana, Wake Forest, Kansas State, UNC, and Nebraska. Ended up committing to Penn State earlier on, but ended up pulling his commitment away from Penn State to join Oklahoma now with the firing of James Franklin. So this is now the 19th commitment for the 2026 recruiting cycle. Big time news for Oklahoma to be able to pull in a big time recruit for the Sooners. So some good news there for Oklahoma coming into this week. Some more good news. I don't know how good news this is, but it's a bright spot. And we'll talk about a couple of bright spots here for Oklahoma. Grayson Miller. He has been an excellent punter all season long, and I think one game that you can really point to and say that he didn't have a great game, whatever, let that be. He's been a great punter all season long, and proving that as this past week he was named the Ray Guy Award Punter of the Week. He averaged 50.8 yards per punt against Ole Miss, 203 yards on 4 punts, ranks 10th nationally and second in the SEC with 47.1 yards on the season average. So he's averaging 47 yards per punt, which is tremendous. Way to flip the field. And has gotten plenty of them stuck inside the 10-yard line as well this season. So very happy with what we've seen from him. So if your offense isn't going to perform well, you definitely need a punter like Grayson Miller. And he's Sports Illustrated's second team midseason All-American. I want to start off by shouting out Grayson Miller and saying congratulations to him. It's awesome. Love to see that for him. He deserves the spotlight. He deserves all the praise for as good as he is in his position. Now, the downside for him being in the position that he plays is we don't want to see him on the field. We love that he's good, and we are ecstatic that he's flipping the field position the way that he has all season long, but we don't want to see him on the field. It's one of those positions where I feel for punters, because they can be the best in the nation. They can have the biggest leg and being able to pin it down deep, but nobody cares because nobody wants to see you on the field. If we see you on the field, Grayson, we think this offense failed. You might do a great job, and we might love you for how great of a job you've done, but the offense failed, so we don't want to see you. See how crappy that position is? It's got to be the worst position group to be a part of, just because, I don't know. There's a time when it feels really good for a split moment because there's teams celebrating with you because you pin it inside the 5-yard line. You're all jacked up and everything. Everybody's patting you on the head. But then you look around the stadium and everyone else is kind of upset that we had to punt the ball away. So, it's that all put aside. I digress. Congratulations to Grayson Miller. He's shown tremendous excellence at the punter position this year. And it's one that Oklahoma fans don't want to see punting success because they would rather just not see the punter out there. But if he's going to be out there, we want him to be good. I'll jump down to the live chat real quick. Again, all super chats will be read live on the show. It secures your chat on the show. Let's see here. Kind of going through. I see Sooners to win says LSU flip, upside down smiley face. I was teasing with somebody on social media this past week and said, yeah, you want to get Bauer Sharp back? Maybe he'll hit the portal. You can get Bauer Sharp. I'm sure that is well known across the entirety of the offense that you don't want that. Bevo's bodyguard says he punted to Ryan Niblett. Huge mistake. He did punt it to Ryan Niblett, but it was also a bunch of mistakes that weren't caught. And even the league office said, yeah, we missed some blocking the backs there. We'll try to fix it next time. Texas gets away with it though. So no, congratulations to you guys. I'm not going to sit there and try to talk crap on you guys. You guys won the game. You get to brag all you want. So you're always welcome in here, Bevo. I appreciate you stirring up the chat every week. But anyway, Stacy says, I applaud our kicker after the few years of not having one. Yes, Tate Sandell is also another spotlight that we could pull out for the entirety of the season. He's been on fire, missed his first field goal attempt ever for Oklahoma, and we thought, oh crap, I think it was his first one. Correct me if I'm wrong. Fact check me on that. But he's hit every single one since then. Football isn't important at OU anymore. That's sad to hear from you, Sooner Cowboys. It's important to us as fans, though, right? So, it's important to us. I think I know what you're saying, and I feel you. It's starting to kind of take a back burner because of the way that it's not being taken seriously. Maybe that's the right way to put it. But no, I really hope they turn things around just for you, man. I hope they do. Hang in there. That's why we come here to this show, right? That's why I love seeing you in the chat, because we can sit here and have this therapy session. We can go through this together. Bevo said, y'all want to get serious about football and sign BV to a lifetime extension. Let's do it. Show me where the checkbook is. I'll get it done. If I'm being honest with you too, I would love to have BV on a lifetime extension as a defensive coordinator. Let's get somebody else to fill in that. Let's get Bob Stoops back in. We all know he wants to coach. We all know he misses coaching. That's why he goes down to the Renegades every year and coaches for a league that nobody watches, because he wants to coach again. So let's get Bob Stoops back in here. Keep Brent Venables on the staff as defensive coordinator. Pay him a hefty penny because he deserves it. And let's do this thing. Let's sign him to a lifetime extension. I love all the banter. But anyways, that's all we got for you guys tonight. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. It helps us out. Just helps us keep on going. So hopefully you guys enjoy the show. Hopefully you guys tune in again. Like I said, we might not have a live show on Thursday, but we will have something out on Thursday. So make sure to stay tuned for that. We will make sure to get our predictions out sometime this week. Again, it'll be on Thursday. I just don't know for sure if it'll be a live show. So stay tuned for that. You can always join in here. Live shows on Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays post game. So make sure to tune in here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Become a member today to help us keep on growing, help us keep on doing the great things that we do here for Oklahoma fans, and give you this therapy session here at least 3 times a week. But we appreciate all of you so much for joining in, for tuning in. We'll catch you next.